57. Poetic justice. The doctrine of poetic justice is an important one. It is usually associated with the 18th century, but by other names or forms, it has been common to much of history. First of all, the term poetic does not mean that the concept is limited to poetry. It refers rather to its origin in Aristotle's Poetics and to Aristotle's concept of the wholeness of a work of art. Aristotle, however, set forth in his Aesthetics that which was basic to his politics, so that, for him, art had a duty to reflect the purpose of the political order. For the same reason, Plato, much more openly and clearly, felt that the arts should serve the political order and reflect its goals. Second, justice in terms of poetic justice means that in art and society, virtue is rewarded or prospered and vice punished. Human society must be just, and hence, in every sphere this purpose must be reflected. Third, Plato's Republic is an expression of this belief. Philosopher kings, by ruling a society, ensure full justice here and now, and the whole social order functions harmoniously. Various thinkers since have compared such a harmonious society to a beehive or to an anthill. All people become parts of an organism and function in terms of the whole. They work as units of a great whole and not as particular persons. Basic to this doctrine is the belief that the solution to human problems is a particular form of organization. Injustice prevails because the wrong element is in control or a wrong form of government used. Whereas the Bible sees sin as the cause of injustice and death, the pagan premises of the doctrine of poetic justice rest in the faith that man's salvation comes from his deliverance from Christianity into a man-made social order, one in which man governs himself without God. Not surprisingly, the doctrine of poetic justice gained its name and formal development with the Enlightenment. While a facade of Christianity was retained, the doctrine saw justice in terms of a man-made definition and accomplishment. Since then, the ways of attaining poetic justice have varied. They have included enlightened despotism, democracy, constitutionalism, fascism, and Marxism. Attain the desired form, and justice shall prevail. For some, revolution is the instrument whereby poetic justice will be ushered in. For others, it's the ballot box. The idea of the family of man has been widely promoted. If men but realize their humankind, their humanity in one another, justice will flow to all men. Alfred Lord Tennyson, in his poem Locksley Hall, presented a similar vision. For I dipped into the future, far as human eye could see, saw the vision of the world, and all the wonder that would be. Saw the heavens filled with commerce, argosies of magic seals, pilots of the purple twilight, dropping down with costly bales. Heard the heavens fill with shouting, and there rained the ghastly dew, from the nation's airy navies grappling in the central blue. For along the worldwide whisper of the south wing rushing warm, with the standards of the peoples plunging through the thunderstorm, till the war drum throbbed no longer, and the battle flags were furled in the Parliament of Man, the Federation of the World. There the common sense of most shall hold a fretful realm in awe, and the kindly earth shall slumber, lapped in universal law. Note that Tennyson's world peace and salvation is by the common sense of most, who keep a fretful realm in awe. Man shall be saved by man through the Parliament of Man, a United Nations. In this way will poetic justice be attained. The essence of political liberalism and radicalism is the belief that these ideas, when realized, will provide justice for all. Political conservatives seek justice in a return to constitutionalism, forgetting that what may have been good in the past was due to men's Christian character rather than a form of civil government. All these views are forms of the doctrine of poetic justice. As a student, I recall hearing a radical agitator in the student body orating at the university campus gate. World problems were simple for him. Oust the evil old men, change the ownership of labour and property, and justice would prevail. He was a passionate believer in poetic justice under other names. Personally, this student was lawless and immoral. He believed that the cause and his importance to the cause gave him privileges over others. He was not the kind of man to trust in your house, let alone over your country. As a champion of a modern form of the doctrine of poetic justice, for him, considerations of character were irrelevant because he believed men to be economically and materialistically determined, not religiously. The premises of the Enlightenment furthered the revival of paganism and made central the doctrine of poetic justice. One consequence of the Enlightenment was the rise of many movements developing the materialistic determination of man. One of these was phrenology. It is now remembered as a belief that a man's life was physiologically determined, not morally so. The popularity of phrenology was that it ostensibly undermined the moral foundations of biblical religion. Mental health was seen by phrenology as a result of the daily exercise of all the mental organs. Inactivity and overactivity could both produce insanity. As Robert Cooter has pointed out, no longer was morality to be the exclusive province of theology. The laws of physiology were now to share that administration, and with an even greater indisputability. Phrenology insisted on material causes for moral effects. Its interpretation of the specifics of those causes is no longer regarded as valid, but its belief that the causes were material is now a scientific article of faith. This is not to say that all humanists have abandoned moral causality. What some have dropped is simply the theological nature of morality in favour of a humanistic one. Thus, Stott and Lind criticised an orthodox Rankian Marxist position that ethical judgments of historical events are irrelevant because the events themselves are determined. For Lind, however, the act of revolution is precisely the ability to take purposeful action with confidence that intended consequences can be achieved. This is an insistence on man's free will and on humanistic morality. For them, the social order has replaced God as the source of morality and justice. Justice and morality become expressions of the natural order, and the state and its courts, instead of being the administrators or ministers of justice, in terms of Romans 13:1 following, become the source thereof. God is replaced by the state, and theoretically, therefore, its enactments are law and justice. This, however, confers an infallibility on the state. If there is no law beyond state law, no justice beyond and over the state, and no Supreme Court of Almighty God over all courts of state, then there is no criterion whereby the state can be called wrong. Then justice becomes what the state does, as in Marxism and fascism. As a result, humanistic man is in a windowless room without doors. Not surprisingly, even, quote, entertainment, end quote, reflects this. Writing about horror films, Stuart M. Kaminsky has said, more recently, though, the aspect of horror has changed and any kind of hope for the viewer has been withdrawn. Horror films of the recent past have, increasingly, been more pessimistic. We're horribly confident that the dark side of man's nature will triumph, that our worst fears must be faced, and that the evil within us simply cannot be destroyed or controlled. Without the theological roots of morality, despair is inevitable. There is then no salvation. Poetic justice in the 18th century borrowed heavily from Christianity and converted its borrowings into a naturalistic scheme. Now the doctrine means simply that justice is what the state does. This is neither poetic nor is it justice.